While distribution has evolved significantly over the past few years, AI and the movement towards proactive and consultative services will bring even greater benefits to channel partners and their customers, according to Bill Brandel, EVP and President of North America for Ingram Micro. In this episode of Beyond Distribution with GTDC, he and host Frank Vitagliano discuss some of those inflection points, the rapid transformation of the industry, and take a long look at the opportunities ahead. If you're looking for additional insights on channel's future direction, download our free copy of the GTDC Tech Distribution 2030 report today, and that is available at www.gtdc.org. Thanks for listening.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to our next edition of Beyond Distribution. I'm Frank Vitagliano, and I'm thrilled today to have with me the Executive Vice President and President of North America, Bill Brandel. Bill, welcome.
Hey, thanks, Frank. Good to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you, and congratulations on the relatively new assignment. What's it been probably now, about 4, 5, 6 months?
Yeah, it's been April. It was official in April, so yeah, we're really new into this thing.
Oh yeah, good. Well, that's great. So Bill, you recently took the role. You obviously had I think, some really big shoes to fill with, Kirk Robinson retiring. Talk a little bit about, if you would, sort of your history, both in the IT space and also with Ingram, because I know you've been with Ingram for quite some time.
Sure thing, sure thing. And by the way, you're absolutely correct. Kirk and I go way back. We're very, very good friends, and the thought of having to take over a business, after someone like Kirk, who's left such a mark on this industry, that was a bit intimidating.
Yeah.
But the good news is he and I were close enough throughout this journey, and we both kind of helped each other along in our career development. So it was really nice to have him behind me, backing me, and help support this move. Right? He's been he was a big part of helping push this through. As we were both growing up in our respective roles. Right? So I think I started, Frank, back in August of '97. I was an entry-level sales rep. So that was my first job at Ingram Micro. And like so many people before me who are in leadership positions today, that was kind of the road, right? I came from an unrelated field completely, and I had to learn the industry. And I think it was, quite honestly, one of the best moves that I ever made, because being able to get the early stages of Ingram Micro back in '97 and understand how we operate, what it takes to actually provide support to customers, from sales, customer service, and all of those different functions, was really instrumental in helping to frame out how I was able to develop as a leader, right? Having understood each of the roles that I had held, coming right from an entry level sales rep and up through the sales ranks, until I took on our vendor teams and started running the vendor relationships. And really, that gave me a totally different perspective and insight. Our role as an extension of our vendor community, and really to help our resale partners bridge the gap between where the vendors are from a service capabilities to where we can fill in. It's one of those key components, and I think getting that rounded view at Ingram was really helpful.
Yeah.
Having run, the enterprise software business and our storage and infrastructure business before moving on to lead Canada was also another great part, because I learned a lot about our advanced solutions practice, a lot about our strength in the advanced solutions space as we built out our capabilities. And then I went on to lead Canada. And of course, taking that advanced mindset, was able to reshape the Canadian business and go from more of a kind of a broad line to more of an advanced distributor within Canada. And I think that was a lot of fun to do. So we really had fun kind of shaping that. And then coming back to lead the US, and now since April, leading North America.
Yeah.
I think that's been
really
the journey.
Yeah, that's good. And I think the perspective of having the perspective of a lot of those roles along the way, I'm sure has really helped in terms of how you lead the teams, because you've lived it. You know what it's like to be an entry-level sales guy. You know what it's like to take the next job up, and that's really significant. And I think people that have that level of experience are better suited when, you end up in the role that you're in, which is now, running a huge part of Ingram's overall business, right? So
I totally agree, Frank.
that's great. You mentioned August of 97. All right, so we're talking what, 28 years ago, I guess now, right? Yeah, 28 years. And a lot has changed in 28 years.
It's
Right.
funny, Frank, think about it, right? You and I have been in this industry for a long time, so you've seen all of the major shifts, right?
Yeah.
But I remember starting and we didn't have internet, we didn't have email,
Yeah.
like we had nothing, right? We had green screen technology, right? And, and it was really in the early stages of the technology boom, right? Where distributors are really kind of that aggregation point and they could get your product the next day and get it there fast and provide credit, right? That was really where I started in my journey. And, it was fun to watch and live through the invention of email and
Mm,
then the internet and actually having the internet at work in
yeah.
your day-to-day activities.
Yeah.
And then ultimately the cell phone. I think that was like another quantum leap was getting that connectivity by a cell phone and being always available. And now you think about where we are today with AI, and you think all of those great events that happen in our history around technology are going to be, I believe, dwarfed by what I think AI brings as potential for all of us going forward.
Yeah, it's an exciting time. There's no question. If you look back and if you have history, which we do, you start thinking about, what are the inflection points? This is
Yeah,
this is, I believe, the most significant inflection point. But one of the things that I'm sure you've experienced, as you've gone along, though, is, and you kind of mentioned this a little bit, is, and I use the term, uh, and I have to be careful because I don't mean to be negative when I say this, but I've used the term for a long time that when I first started working with distribution, they were a bank and a warehouse.
yeah,
That's what you did, right? You helped,
yeah,
me get product to market, but it was mostly financing and it was mostly, around product aggregation, et cetera. But distribution does so much more, right? And
absolutely.
you've seen that evolution because it's really happened over the last 20-25 years, really. That's really when it's happened, right? But talk a
Yeah.
little bit about that and about the services that you guys have been continued to evolve to where you're at now. And we'll certainly talk a little bit more about platforms, et cetera, but you've seen
Sure.
that evolution and lived it.
Absolutely, Frank. And it's interesting because as I said, you're right. I mean, I think that early days, that was really where distribution kind of grew up out of. It became a bank and a warehouse, right? However, it was really around the dot bomb, that infamous dot bomb when we all thought Y2K was gonna shut everything down and the world was gonna be on pause and it was gonna be a disaster, right? I think it was at that point when you started to really see a shift in the entire industry. Because
Mm,
before that, we were so busy from an inbound perspective, just kind of trying to feed technology out to the world. There really wasn't a lot of time to do much of anything else.
mm,
And I think it was during that Y2K bubble burst when the phones just stopped ringing. There was so much technology in the industry and everyone was, nothing catastrophic happened. So we all had to take a pause and kind of reset. And I think that was really the biggest point in time that I can remember where we really were forced to think differently about our role and how we were going to, kind of proceed after that. And I
mm.
think that was when you started to see us really start to develop services to help augment what vendors were bringing to the channel, right? And to be more proactive in the way we were approaching how we went and supported our resell partners,
Yeah.
because before we were far more reactive to inbound calls and requests. We had to now start making outbound calls and start talking about their businesses and where they could see opportunity. And I think as a result of that, more and more services were born as you think about some of the support mechanisms that were put in place that were more vendor specific, right? So we were able to build out teams to help resale partners grow their competencies either expand their competencies, go deeper into their competencies, or grow new competencies. And those were all things that we needed to develop to be that kind of provide more value instead of just the bank and the warehouse. This we were now looked at as a place people could go to learn and gain the necessary certifications and skills to be able to expand their portfolios and offer that to their end customers. And so
Yeah.
a lot of that happened.
Yeah, and it's such a huge deal. I mean, in the 2 years that I spent in the solution provider world, and when I went into it, I thought I knew distribution, right?
Yeah,
From a channel chief standpoint, I felt like I knew distribution as well or better than any channel chief. I have
yeah,
to tell you, when I became a customer of distribution, I learned a lot more about the value, right? Because what I discovered is you guys were doing things that in a lot of cases the suppliers or the vendors didn't really see or didn't realize, right? A lot of the custom work, a lot of the services activities. And actually, we'll talk a little bit about this. That'll probably just accelerate as time goes on because as there's less and less opportunity around the box because there's less and less box revenue coming, there's going to
yeah,
be more services requirements. The other
absolutely.
piece that was significant uh, was the investment that your customers have to make to get into a new practice, to get into a new technology, to become proficient, to have the skills and all the expertise that's needed is really hard and really expensive. And so I know, for example, skills is one of the biggest areas, in the ecosystem now that people are concerned about. Talk about some of the things that you guys are doing and have been doing and will continue to do to supplement those skills and augment those skills.
Yeah, so that's a great point, Frank. And I think even if you go back a ways when we were the originator of kind of tech support, pre-sales tech support, right? So think about that, right? Before Ingram built tech support solutions, customers had to go to the OEMs, they had to go to the manufacturers, and
Right.
then oftentimes they had to pay to get into the OEMs tech support area. And then as they were working through the solution, they'd find that it was really a problem with maybe a software component. So they'd
Right.
get picked over to the software vendor, and then the
Right.
software vendor, you'd pay to get in and you'd go get that service. And so it was a really, really complex and costly way of managing your business as a reseller, right? And those costs you weren't always able to recoup on every transaction, right? So it was a challenge, and I think that was where we saw opportunity, and we built out the world's biggest pre-sales tech support organization that
Mm.
still exists, and I believe it's one of the only true real pre-sales tech supports that exist today, where it's completely agnostic. A customer can call in and get their solution diagnosed and fixed with one phone call and not having to bounce all over and into that old model. And that was kind of early days, one of those things that we put in place that I think were transformational for us, right, and for our partners, and took away a lot of the costs and alleviated a lot of the stresses of doing complex configurations and support. So I think that has continued to evolve, right, where we started to break into category focuses and be able to provide a level of specialization around categories and then drill down to very specific vendor needs and requirements. And I think having that background of the early days pre-sale support to now be able to provide support across the entire life cycle of an opportunity, I think is really where you've seen us evolve and grow.
Yeah, there's no question. I think one of the most underrated capabilities that you provide is the multi-vendor,
Yeah,
support and capability. And a lot of people underestimate that. And this isn't a knock on the vendor community. I spent 40 years there, so I'm I'm a huge proponent. But
right.
in a lot of cases, you need to have that capability that you just very well described because it isn't always as simple as one product, two product as part of a solution. It's I don't know. I think I've heard Paul talk about it not too long ago. Said the average was more than six to
Yeah,
seven, right? Products that are going
that's
into
correct.
a solution. It's an overused word, solution, but the fact of the matter is, that's what it is, right?
It is. It
Yeah,
is.
yeah. So
And it's funny because we've used to sell products and now all we sell is solutions, right? Really. And if you think about it, even the buyers and how technology is acquired by companies has changed. There used to be these big IT shops and there'd be IT leaders and they would be the ones making all of the decisions. Well, now you're looking at line of business leaders making decisions on what they need to be successful. And so it's just really kind of, this entire industry has been fascinating to watch how it's morphed and it's evolved. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it really is. It's fun to be part of. The other thing that I mentioned earlier, inflection point. And so one of the things that I see, and you talked about AI a little bit, but in addition to the technology shifts that we're seeing and the technology, innovation and enhancements, which are extraordinarily significant, we're also seeing some business model changes though, right? Consumption models, for example, are becoming very significant for obvious reasons, right? I mean, end users are demanding, that vendors and solution providers work a little differently. But I know you guys have been involved right from the beginning, working closely with a lot of your bigger partners to implement their version of consumption models. And then over time, hopefully you guys become the expert and you help the smaller suppliers implement them. But talk a little bit about what you're doing there, because as a solution provider, somebody who's been in the community, it is a significant shift. I mean, it's big and it can't be underestimated.
It cannot be, Frank. You're spot on. And I mean, think about it, right? We go back to the 97 days. I was selling Microsoft in a box, right?
Yeah,
I think it was DOS.
right, exactly.
It would still came in a box and you had to load it. I think it was a floppy at the time. You had to load it onto your system. And
Right,
that's how you got software, right? So
right.
think of how far we've come from taking a floppy disk to load into your system to now you can just order it up and load it right from the cloud and it comes right to your system and it's constantly updated and constantly the latest greatest edition, right?
Yeah.
So it's definitely come a long way, and those it was not a smooth transition, as you know. I mean, you were deep into this, right? You know that this transformation going from on-prem physical software to the cloud and to consumption base has been a journey that would had a lot of points within it that were very challenging, right? As we were making the shift. It's good to see kind of we've all gotten past a lot of that, the initial early stages of pain and are now in a much, much better place when it comes to being able to deliver a true cloud base or a true consumption based model with number of different providers, right? And you're spot on. I mean, being able to work with the biggest companies out there, the Microsofts of the world, you know what I mean? And IBMs and some of those big software companies of the world, and be able to work with them and then help some of the smaller, more emerging technologies. When you think of some of the security vendors and that are up and coming, that we're able to help with support their transition and do it in a much more efficient way. It's been a great thing to see, and it's been a great thing to be part of. And I think it just set us all up for where we are today, where you touched on it earlier with the whole platform economy and how everything is now more focused on platform and being able to leverage a platform to be a true support mechanism for your business.
Yeah, totally. And so let's talk about that. So obviously, you guys are have made significant investments over the past. I mean, I remember Kirk probably 5 years ago at an exchange event talking about Ingram at that point had invested hundreds of millions of dollars, in building out, the beginning of Cloud Blue and the platform.
Yeah.
And now with Xvantage, you guys have continued with that. And to me, it's become Jack's a better. I mean, it's become table stakes. You have to have it, right? Not
Yes.
and there's no secrets. So now the question is who's executing, better,
Yeah.
right? So talk a little bit about what you're seeing. Two things. One, what's the value from your standpoint to both, upstream and downstream, vendors and
Sure.
customers, right? And secondly, what are you seeing? What are you hearing? Because you guys have been into it for a while now, and I'm sure you're getting a lot of feedback, right?
Yeah, that is true.
Right.
And feedback is a gift. We all
Yeah.
love it.
Right.
And you're right. Cloud Blue was the first kind of iteration, right? We had to find a way to build a platform that could manage the cloud subscriptions, right? And help with that transition, right? Because if you think about distribution and our systems and what we've had to grow up with, because we support the entire ecosystem, it creates challenges, right? So we had one system for hardware, one system for software. We had to build a system to manage cloud, a system for services, so you have all these different things that if you were to be a sales rep today and have, or in my day, you had to jump from system to system to system to put things together. And,
Right.
they were all different disparate systems. And so, you always had, hiccups and things that you had to solve for because it wasn't easy. So fast forward, we get through with the cloud platform with Cloud Blue, and that becomes kind of the foundation for Xvantage, right? And it wasn't until we brought Sanjeev Sahu, who and who really was the true architect for this vision, and he really transformed our mindset to become a platform company. And what that really means, Frank, is that now you don't have all these disparate systems. You have one platform, one control panel dashboard that you run your business through. Okay. And so you have hardware, software, cloud services all in one single pane of glass and all at your fingertips anytime and anywhere you want to do it, your business. So that vision that he started all those years ago has really transformed who we are as a company. We are a platform. We no longer talk about becoming one because we are a platform company.
Yep.
We're able to see a difference of what our platform can do and what it means to our vendors and our customers. So I'll give you an example. You asked about downstream and upstream. So let's start at the vendor community. So we now have OEMs that are looking at us differently. We just recently signed an exclusive opportunity with an OEM to manage their back end through Xvantage. So all of their back end processes, they'll go do the go to market, the customer facing, the R&D, and then we'll manage all of the operational aspects for the whole channel for them from an exclusive perspective, and it's all done on Xvantage. When they did the cost evaluation of building their own systems, it was far more effective and cost effective for them to partner with Ingram and have us be that support engine. So we're very excited about that. These are conversations none of us were ever having with distributors or with OEMs before.
Right.
So then how does that translate to a partner? I would tell you if I could go back in time and have Xvantage when I was an entry-level sales rep, I'd be the happiest person on the planet. Because what we're able to do now, because it is built on AI and machine learning, we're able to provide insights to our customers like we've never been able to do, Frank.
Right.
I can now, as a sales rep, come into Ingram Micro, load up my Xvantage platform, turn it on, and I see all the activities that I need to get done in that day. And that involves and includes opportunities where we can give insights to our resale partners on deals they're working on when they're ready to close, when they're within a 7-day window of closing. And we're doing these proactive outcalls to notify our partners to say, look, you got to get back on this opportunity. It's about to close. And do you have everything you need? And we give them other insights to take to the partner on additional things they can bring to the conversation. And we're having an incredible success at close rates when we compare them to our traditional way we managed opportunities as they came into Ingram. So we're talking about a game-changing transformation, not just for Ingram, but for our partners who are able to provide that level of white glove support to their end customers that, quite frankly, none of us have been able to do before.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. No, I mean, you guys are always, I mean, I remember talking to Kirk about BI,
yeah,
10 years ago, right? But the problem was you could never really get it to the point, and some of it was technology to where you could really harness everything that was out there, right? 40 years of
right,
data.
right,
Incredible
right.
data, right?
But Frank, that's why when you ask why are people just don't seem to ever leave Ingram, right? I mean, we're all very tenured leaders here and people here because I think for me, I can tell you when people say, what keeps you at Ingram? For me, it's the fact that it's innovation. I mean, our company has been on the forefront of innovation in this industry in what we do for as long as I've been here. Just like you said, BI, we were the first to talk about BI. We're the first to talk about platforms. And now, if you look around this industry, you can't go a day without hearing others talk about platforms. And it's really because they're waking up to the realization that this is real. This is going to be game changing. So to your earlier point about who's executing, my encouragement is always the proof is in the pudding. Go ask for a demo. Go see it in action. Go leverage the platform and see how it can help your business. And I can tell you from what I've seen, Ingram has a remarkable platform that is truly geared at helping make our customers more successful in their business practices.
Yeah. Well, the thing that, when I look at it from two vantage points, right, that I have, one is the vendor vantage point, and that becomes obviously extraordinarily important because if you can help streamline the process of doing business all the way up and down the stack,
Yeah.
of go to market, that's cost, right? That takes cost out of the business. From a solution provider standpoint, I look at it and you create stickiness there because, if you get somebody on your platform and they're depending on the platform, in the environment that we live in today, you just keep them there. And that to me is really a huge advantage to, anybody's platform, right?
That's right.
So there's no question it's the way business is going to be transacted, now and going forward. So, you guys have certainly made those investments and it's really good, really good.
No, I appreciate that. And the other piece I would just add to that is, it's important, more important today than ever before, as I said, about being able to manage your entire ecosystem of business partners is, there's platforms out there that do just one thing really, really well, right? They may be really, really good in software, or they might be really, really good in hardware. That's great. If they're really good at that one thing, that's great, but that's not going to be scalable. That's not going to last forever. You have to be able to manage the entire solution for a partner. That's how you show up to your end user. And so you need one platform. You're not going to be jumping from a platform that does software to a platform that does hardware to a platform that you're going to want one platform that makes it the easy button. And then the way that you make it really sticky and help partners so you become a true business partner with your resellers is the integration into their tool sets.
Yeah.
So another big thing that Sanjeev launched just recently was the integrations hub. And for a lack of a better way of describing it, it's almost like it would have resembled like an app store. So if you have Salesforce, you can download that app and within minutes be connected to Xvantage in a push-pull model. So you can now interact in the tools your teams are familiar with every single day. You don't have to leave your tools to go jump into someone else's platform. And I'll tell you, that's a true value because it's an ease of connecting to all of the different tools that your company uses and gain all the necessary information you need to feed your systems and push it back to Ingram. And it's all integrated. And you don't need to spend months and months in API development to get it done. It's download it, click it, and you're good to go. So
Yeah.
that to me is something that is game changing for Ingram. And I believe going to continue to further demonstrate the value of this platform to our customers.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is why we're still doing what we do because there's so much happening and it's so exciting to see where we are today versus I can't even imagine. I mean, I'm not in it like you are. I'm on the periphery a little bit, so I have enough of a background that I understand it when we talk about it, but I can't even imagine living it every day and, comparing it to what you said earlier of what it was like, 25 years ago on the desk, right?
Yeah, it was a nightmare, Frank. I
I,
mean, you probably remember, I'll say a name that from the past, a blast from the past. You remember a guy by the name of Jim Veraldi?
oh, sure. I
You
know.
remember
Yeah,
Jim Veraldi, right?
absolutely. Yeah.
So Jim was like you, right? He was a reseller, and then he actually worked at Ingram. And I'll never forget, he
Yep.
said to me one day, he goes, Bill, I got to be honest with you. If I would have known everything that Ingram is doing and everything that I could have leveraged,
Yeah.
because I would have been such a better reseller.
Yeah.
He goes, I just did not know. And it's because it's like we do a lot of things. We talk a lot about what we do, but until someone's really at a point where they need that solution, they don't necessarily always hear it or see it as real value.
Well, yeah, I mean, I do it. Look, and we'll wrap up here in a minute because usually my theory is people don't like to listen to anybody for more than
Yeah,
30 minutes, and
I
certainly we're in
gotcha.
that category, right?
I gotcha.
But I say this for been saying it for a long time, and I actually said it at the end of every our event, it's GTDC summit. I say if there's one thing I could tell the vendors to do or the solution providers, who I don't talk to very much because you guys do a better job at that than I do, but is ask ask your distributors to help you solve a problem, because you're probably going to realize they have capabilities to do way more than you think they can do. And I've been saying that for a long time, and that's exactly the point, is when you sit down and you now start solving a problem, you start to realize, wow, there's more here. There's a lot more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
couldn't have said that better myself, Frank. That was beautiful.
Yeah.
I almost always say that at the end of a conversation, and you just nailed it.
Good thing we recorded it. Now we've got it posterity. Everybody knows it.
I love it. I
Yeah.
love it.
Well, good. Well, Bill, I got to ask you one last thing.
Sure.
And I kind of know, what you're going to say, but in the environment we're currently in, we got to talk about it just for a minute. Tariffs,
Yeah.
really, really hard, right? There's been a lot of discussion, up, down, there's all kinds of stuff happening, but it's got to be really hard for you guys sitting there trying to manage a really big business, not having a sense for what your costs are going to be. I mean, talk about how you're thinking about that, because I think
Yeah.
it's significant right now.
We're very, very fortunate. We have great partnerships with our vendor partners. We
Yep.
have great partnerships with our key resale partners, and I have an incredibly talented and gifted team that I
Yep.
have that support, kind of how we're looking at purchasing and how we want to prepare for this, right? So I think we were able to get as much as we could get some guidance from our connections to be able to inform our own opinions around how we needed to proceed, right? In my space, I often opt to go a little bit more on the aggressive side. So we were very proactive in the very early days to make sure we were able to capitalize before anything really did materialize in the way of tariffs. So I think
Yep.
it's done well. I think we've managed it efficiently, and now we're at a stage where we're all hoping that this is going to now start to get more normalizing and back to normal. So, anything can happen still to this day, but I think that we're in a pretty good position. It's not easy to do, Frank, like you said, but I think with all of those resources and being able to have those conversations, and then quite frankly, you just kind of go with your gut sometimes and make some of those decisions that you think are best for your customer, and that's
Yeah.
what we try to do. And I think we've done pretty well so far.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think at the end of the day, there's a couple of things. One, you guys have an extraordinarily long track record, right? And secondly, your customers trust you, and your suppliers trust you. And at the end of the day, yeah, I mean, we had the same scenario, when the pandemic hit, the same thing happened. I saw that, you guys and your other distributors, your competitors, you all collectively did an unbelievable job of working really closely with the supplier community to keep that supply chain flowing.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't really, I think when you go back from a history standpoint and look at what happened, and you start to realize it took about a year to a year and a half before there was really a lot of, shortages in the IT space. It was
Yeah.
like, how did that happen? And of course, I'm partial, but I give credit to the distribution chain, because you guys managed that unbelievably well. And so similarly, maybe it's not the same scenario, but similarly, as long as the collaboration is there, it should work out, right? As best as
That's correct.
possible.
You are correct, because you've got some intelligent people at every level, right? And so you're plugging into those very smart people, and it's not like this is the first time any of us have ever seen this, right? In
Right.
our lifespans, right? We've seen tariffs come and go. We've seen this happen in the past, and
Yep.
so we have some of that to draw on as well. This kind of think about how we handled it in previous situations, right?
Yeah. Well, Bill, look, this was great. I really enjoyed the time we spent. We probably went a little longer, but we could sit here and talk for the next, couple
I
of
love it.
hours. But this
Yeah.
is really good, and I really as I said earlier, congratulate you on your new role. and just keep doing what you're doing, man. And it was great having you.
Thank you, Frank. It was great being here. I really enjoyed it myself.